Well, here we are coming at you live from downtown, not downtown, but the suburbs of Tokyo, here on Wednesday morning, Tokyo time. I guess we're Tuesday evening in the United States, and this is the Wednesday edition of the Gaijin 50 Plus live stream. It's nice and warm here in Tokyo, getting warmer, sometimes cold, sometimes warm. The weather is changing back and forth, and I hope everything is fine where you are at. Let me change my camera angle around so I can see my screen. I'm here on my own today, as usual, on a Wednesday. Saturday, I have a partner, good old Carl. But today I'm on my own, so I have to watch about 3 different screens and jump around and click the right buttons at the right time. I got up a little bit late today. Last night I thought I set my clock so I get up early enough to get all of this stuff ready before I go on the air. But what happened was I must have misset my alarm because it didn't go off this morning. So I ended up getting up late, had to hurry up and eat breakfast and stuff like that. And then I came over here trying to set up my stories. So we will be having some stories for you soon. I like to start out a little bit slow because we wait to see if we're going to have some people joining us. Oh, I got to see my chat. All right. So, that's a studio chat. Okay. Comments maybe you were looking for. All right. I've got my comments displayed. Nobody's commenting yet. So if you have something to say, you want to be that's Adventures. Hi, how you doing? That's a regular. Notifications worked. Thankfully, I apparently set my alarm an hour late. Yeah. Actually, I set up this live stream and had the thumbnail and set up the thumbnail for standard time. And then Carl dropped me a line and says, hey, they changed over to daylight savings times in the United States there. So you better change that. So I was able to get that done on time. Daylight savings time. I heard that there was one province in Canada that decided to do away with daylight they did away with time changing, and they went on permanent daylight savings time, which sounded like a pretty good idea to me. But then again, well, I don't know, because in Japan there's one time zone, even though Japan sort of like bends, and the southern part, well, it looks like the southern part of Japan is actually referred to as Western Japan in Japan. And so the way Japan curves, the southern part goes off to the west. And in Fukuoka, for example, during the summer months, it doesn't get dark till like 8 o'clock or even later. So that's because they don't do any daylight savings time over here. And there's quite a difference between the sunlight up north and the sunlight further down south. Udatsu Adventure tells us, get up there. Okay. Yeah, my daughter missed a lesson today because Arizona doesn't have daylight savings time. So I forgot her time changed for it. Yeah, there you go. Arizona doesn't have daylight savings time. I don't know. Do other states have it? I know Arizona doesn't because I have family in Arizona. But okay, talking about school, let's take a look at a little bit about some school news in Japan, public schools. And according to this story, Japan public high school admission applications fall below capacity in 33 prefectures. So see if I can. So full-time public high schools in 33 of Japan's 47 prefectures have fewer applicants than they have places to fill for the 2026 school year. Well, that's a lot of problems for Japan's schools. This is a constant theme these days in Japan. The baby boom bump in the population is going down, so the population is declining. A lot of reasons for that, a lot of comments about that. What they're going to do about it, well, that's in a constant debate. And they said, it's not only the end of the baby boom. They say that this is maybe due to the government's tuition-free program for private high schools, boosting the popularity of private high schools and accelerating the shift away from public schools. Now, I don't know anything about this I didn't know about it until I read this article that they were going to a tuition-free program for private high schools. But that seems like something that's really hard to manage, don't you think? If the government is running the public high school system, and then they allow tuition-free for private high schools, it's sure to sap the enrollment of public high schools. I think they're having that same debate in the United States, where there's what do they call them? Charter schools, which are private schools, or the tuition, allowing people to deduct tuition from their taxes for private schools. That's an ongoing debate for the same reasons that I just mentioned. If the government supports private schools, then people will move away from public schools. So I'd like to know what you think about it, especially you parents out there. They say that Japan's declining birth rate has long been blamed for shrinking applicant pools for public high schools, especially in regional areas. However, when the Mainichi calculated the number of third-year student high schools based on the Basic School Survey for academic 2024 and 2025, and compared the rate of change with that in applicant numbers, it found that the decline in applicant numbers was steeper than that in the population in every prefecture except Fukui, Tokushima, and Oita. So, and it says starting in academic 2026, the government plans to make tuition free at private high schools and other institutions. I think this is the reason that they're making tuition free at public high schools and other institutions in Japan, I think maybe because of the declining population. They think that if they make tuition or education easier on parents, maybe parents will have more children. Whether that will work or not, we shall see. And in another regard on this one, I found these two articles very interesting. This article that we're looking at now says that there are not enough students to fill public high schools, but at the same time, over 4,300 teacher posts are unfulfilled at the start of the 2025 school year, according to a Japanese government survey. Well, that's interesting. Student enrollment is going down, and still they can't get enough teachers. They say here a total of 4,300 teacher shortages were reported at around 3,000 public high schools across Japan as of the start of 2025 academic school year. The main cause was the inability to free vacancies created by maternity leave and sick leave. Now, I read this and I said, "What? Maternity leave and sick leave? What's with that?" And they said they keep recruiting younger teachers, but the younger teachers are now taking maternity and child care leave. And that wasn't the thing in the past. The older teachers, I guess, weren't the kind to take maternity and child care leave. And also fewer people in general are entering the teaching profession. And why is this? Long working hours and the challenges of dealing with parents have contributed to a widespread perception of teaching as an exploitative job, which may be causing potential candidates to avoid the profession. Now, I read that this is a problem also in the United States, that there's a teacher shortage, and mostly it's because teaching is not such an attractive option because as a occupation, because it's very rough to teach in the United States. The students have become too wild, and they don't obey, and they attack teachers and all this other kinds of horror stories that we heard. Now, I know I'm in the teaching business here, and I have talked to some teachers who have taught in Japanese public schools, and actually they report the same kind of thing. They say especially high school students, can be pretty hard to teach. They just don't pay attention. The teacher's teaching and they're walking around and visiting their friends and talking and ignoring the teacher. And if you say anything, they're going to answer back, and in some cases get pretty hostile towards the teacher, which is pretty much against what we normally envision for the Japanese schools classroom. Everybody thinks that the Japanese students are so good and well behaved, but evidently it's not so. I don't know. I don't have any firsthand experience in that regard. Let's take a look at what other people have been saying. Udatsu Adventure says, I don't think Alaska has daylight savings time, but I'm not sure. And then must have checked it. Not Alaska. I'm talking about Hawaii. And then my husband's island doesn't have a high school. So he went to Okinawa Island. Brother went to Hiroshima. Not sure where sister went, but I believe that tuition-free thing is a subsidy. So maybe it's a tax thing, tax deduction. I don't know. But yeah, one of the reasons that Japanese people give for not having children, young people give, is just it's too expensive. When you get through paying for everything, including education, it can be a real burden on a family or on a couple. And so they decide not to have children, or decide to have only one child or something like that. And that's what's really causing a lot of trouble here. They're trying to find ways to make it cheaper to have children. But I don't think it's, maybe it's not a money thing alone that's keeping people from having children. Udatsu Adventures again. I was looking at high schools a while back, and it was, if you had 3+ kids, it was free with subsidies. Now they're making it for everyone, might be based on income. The news seems to change every month. Yeah, they seem to be grasping for straws in a way to solve this population problem. Okay. My brother-in-law's special ed teacher take full-time. Okay. All right. Paternity. Yeah, paternity leave is becoming a thing here. It's on the books. I think it's allowed, but then you have to take it, and you have to deal with the social thing too over here. You know how that is. People start looking at you funny. That's a big thing over here. And my husband says high school kids are bad. Okay, yeah, and that jibes according to what I hear too. Well, looks like we have very few people joining us here today. Maybe it is because of daylight savings time. I hope so. I hope it's not because people have lost. It's Shred Edwards here. My wife had attorney, but she was an RN. Yeah, I guess nurse is I can see, because I know I go to a big hospital for some thing I need to have checked regularly. And it seems like the big hospitals here in Japan, and maybe it's the same in the States too, it's not like they hire a full-time doctor and the doctor is always there 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. It seems like like the doctor's profession in the big hospitals is almost like the teaching profession, in the English teaching profession in Japan. They have a bunch of doctors who work on certain days of the week between certain hours. It's like a part-time kind of thing. And I had this one doctor I was saying about something that I have to check regularly. And she told me last time, oh, I'm not going to be here anymore. Somebody else is going to take my place. And like, she was only there like 2 days a week and stuff like that. So maybe nursing and healthcare, maybe it's more like that. So it would be easier to take maternity leave or leave when you please. I'm wondering if that's true of registered nurses. I don't know, but if you can let us know. And I wonder what happens if she did take, if she was on a regular salary, and if she took maternity leave, if she was able to maintain her full salary. All of that is really, really interesting to me, because I am not that profession. So, okay. He's afraid of our kids becoming Yankees. Well, nobody wants that, do they? They have one of the few unions that are worth anything. Okay, there you go. Unionization. There was a time when I used to look negatively upon unions when they were when the economy was really booming in the United States, and you had these unions making crazy demands for all kinds of benefits and not wanting to work that much. And there was a time where we had where it was easy to have a negative opinion about unions, but now I think the pendulum has swung, and it was good to see the unions be put in their place in a way. But now I wish the unions would come back, because as we know, there's a big imbalance in income, and I'm not going to say income, but wealth, especially in the United States, and it's starting to be that way in Japan too, in Tokyo especially. If you want to get a job anywhere near downtown Tokyo, you have to be basically a millionaire to not get a job, get a place to live. You basically have to be a millionaire, and people who aren't millionaires are cut out of the real estate market. And so I would say that unions, there must be a balance somewhere, and I think unions are we need unions more than ever now, even though, like I said, I was once not that happy with unions. Okay, here's an interesting story that I found, and I'm interested to hear about the way it is in other countries, especially. Oh, Shred Edward, one more. He says, that's why I live in the sticks. I'm not a millionaire. Yeah, that's one of the ways that you can get into the real estate market without being a millionaire in Japan, is go out and live in the sticks. I think I might have told this story in another in the Saturday live stream, but I used to, for like 11 years, I had a place out in Tochigi. And that I was out there because I love to play golf. My official address was still in Tokyo, but I rented a place out in Tochigi, and it was in this development that was done by JR, the Japan Railway, and it was a like a separate house, country house, cottage kind of development. And when they did it, they made the development during the bubble, and during those days, the land was quite expensive. It was, hundreds of thousands of yen per tsubo. Tsubo is a Japanese land measurement that we always use. And many people bought land out there because it was comparatively much cheaper than Tokyo. And they thought, well, land prices were going up and up and up. So if I buy something here, it'll appreciate, because land always appreciates in Japan. Haha. But anyway, what happened was after the bubble burst, the land price stabilized and started edging downwards. And the people who had these, they built these big country houses and then stopped using them. So they had these houses. So they started renting them out for very cheap prices. So I had this big, humongous house that I was living in. It was great. It was in the countryside. I could play golf a couple times a week, and it was, and it's because of the internet, I could do my business online. So it was really wonderful there. But what happened is that those land plots that were hundreds of thousands of yen per tsubo, you could pick them up now for probably 20,000 yen or 30,000 yen per tsubo, which is, like 1/5 or less of what they once sold for. So, like I said, and you can see these things on the internet about these abandoned houses. Some of them are true. Some of them are, not so true, because you can pick up these abandoned houses. Yeah, maybe so, but you either have to be really skillful at fixing things up yourself, or you have to pay a lot of money to fix things up. So by the time you're finished getting something into livable shape, you end up paying quite a bit of money. But there are probably deals to be had compared to what they once were in Japan. Oh, and compared to the United States, it was with the yen dollar thing. Somebody sent me a message the other day in the other live stream that said, because of the inflation of the dollar and the yen and the buying power and all this kind of stuff, they said that the buying power of the dollar now in Japan is greater than it was when it was 360 yen to the dollar. I don't know if that's true, but I was pretty shocked to hear that, because I got here when it was 360 yen to the dollar, and I was on a US dollar payment system, salary system, and I felt like I was a king. You know, I felt like I was really, really rich. So I don't know if that's true, but if it is, and you're ever thinking about coming to Japan, this might be a good time to do it. And Shred Edward says, you don't want to live in an akiya because old kotatsu were coal-fired, which requires a breezy house. Yep. You know, my wife is Japanese, and every time we talk about country houses and stuff like that, she always says, no way, you know, because they're so cold in the wintertime. They're very, like you said, breezy. Maybe it's because it's to stay alive when you're burning coal. All right, good point. And Greg says, union all the way. They sounds like a union man to me. Well, that's good. You know, I mean, like I said, I become a fan of the unions. I wish they would do more, as a matter of fact, to get, you know, there's a very bad imbalance going on. You know, balance is, it's always good if you have a little bit of conflict. I mean, if the unions get too strong, no good. If the companies get too strong, so you need this constant balance, and then I think things are kept in control. So here's another story that I thought was really interesting. Look at this. Damage from telecom fraud, social media scams in Hokkaido. Now, this is just Hokkaido, tops 1 billion yen in just 2 months. What do you think about that? I'd like to hear from the people in the States if scams are a big thing, even though I did watch some scam videos yesterday, and I was pretty surprised about what I saw on the videos that I watched. Excuse me, I have to turn on my heater here. I'm in the non-sunshine side of my condo here, and so in the morning, where I'm at, the sunshine side of the house is not bad. It's relatively warm or comfortable, but on the non-sunshine side where I'm at, it's really hard to control the temperature level. I'll turn on the heater for a while, and it'll start getting warm. I'll shut it off, and I feel like I'm in the North Pole, which just happened, so I had to turn the heater back on. So it says 30% of the losses by the scams were attributed to fake police scams, where individuals impersonate people such as police officers to fraudulently attain money under the guise of investigations. Now, they give one case here, and I read of another case very similar. The largest single loss amounted to 77 million yen, which is roughly $489,000, involving a woman in her 60s in Sapporo's Chuo ward who was deceived by a man claiming to be an officer from Osaka Prefectural Police's 2nd Investigation Division, who told her, "We need to check if the money in your account is related to a crime." I read this similar kind of thing. They got this was the one that I saw originally was with some guy, and they said, "Oh, you know, we have information that your account was used for a crime." And it was a fraud crime that they said it was used for. And they said, "We're doing an investigation, and we need to check to see if the money that is currently in your account was part of the fraud. Now, we have the serial numbers from the fraud, so we need to check to see if the money, if the serial numbers of the bills in your account match the serial numbers that we have. So give us your banking, give us your account number and password so we can go in there and check your money." And the guy said, "Yeah, okay." And the police, of course, they went in there and took all this money. So I think it's pretty funny when I read something like this. I couldn't imagine ever being taken in as a scam such as this. But still, I'm not at the age where my thinking is getting funny. So maybe I will succumb to this in the future. Who knows? But what do you think about this? Is this kind of scam also perpetrated in other countries? Do people, the scams that I saw online yesterday in the videos that I watched were all romance scams where some guy, the one that I watched in particular, some guy got in touch with this lady somehow, and they got into a relationship, and they actually used AI to make this guy look like this handsome guy with a nice voice call her on FaceTime or something like that, and it looked pretty real. And it's the scam. You've heard it 100 times. I've got this business thing, and if I don't come up with this money right away, I'm going to lose everything. But if you help me by giving me this money, I can go through with this business deal, and I'll make 10 times my money, and I'll pay you back, and we'll get married and live happily ever after. And there's this one, and this woman ended up giving this guy $1 million, So if anybody's got $1 million that they don't know what to do with, send it to me, and I will love you forever. And make no mistake about that. All right. Let's go. Ooh, that's what it is. I just moved some of our money into yen when it hit 158. Good move, since you're getting ready to move, come over here. And it's good for you that the yen is moving in the right direction. And she says, I'm not sure about fake scams. IRS sends warnings here and there about people asking for information, but a lot of robocallers has gotten to where I block all calls that aren't in my contacts. Yeah, I heard about robocallers in the United States. In fact, sometimes I have trouble contacting family members in the U.S. because since I call from an international number, it looks funny on their phone, and they think it's another robocaller, and they won't pick up sometimes. And that robocallers drive them crazy. And you'd think that they would do something about that legislatively. I heard that they did or tried to and then couldn't. So I don't know the details. If you know them, please let me know. I could see where robocallers are used for campaigning, political campaigning. So if they say no more robocalling, somebody might say, oh, you're interfering with my campaign, so you can't do that. But I'm sure robocalling would become a pain in the neck very quickly. Even here, I don't think we get robocalling, but we do get cold calling sometimes. So all of our telephones are set up to reject numbers that aren't in our contacts. And I think that's the only thing you do. But then you run the risk of missing calls from important people that aren't in your contacts. So it is a hard problem to deal with. I'm surprised that so many people get scammed like this. I am too. Like I said, and the people who are scammed that I saw in YouTube yesterday, they were saying things like, everybody thinks that everybody who's scammed is dumb and they can't believe it, but they play upon the emotions, and they're very skilled. I saw a story sometime back that said this elderly woman in Japan got scammed out of a bunch of money because this guy got in touch with her and told her that he was an astronaut, a Japanese astronaut, and he was up in the space station and had some earthly emergency that he had to pay this money as soon as possible, or he was going to lose something, but he couldn't pay because he was up in the space station. And would she please? And she did. And I don't know what the outcome was, but I remember thinking, wow, I hope I never get that bad. Okay. I remember the ware scam, where people would call old people and claim to be all right. Actually, no, instead of ware, that was ore. And I guess it's the same. They have the same thing in the U.S. The "It's Me" scam, where somebody calls up and says, "Hey, it's me." And yeah, okay, I could, yeah, a little bit. But you think once it gets publicized, people would catch on. Or if somebody said, "It's me," tell them, "Okay, I'll call you right back," and hang up and call the family member in question back. But I guess when you're elderly, you have assets, and you have kindness in your heart for your own children and grandchildren, who after some time seldom contact you, and you feel you want to help, you willing to help them out, like buy their affection, and you have the means to buy it. So you want to be a problem solver for your offspring or your offspring's offspring. So in a way, I could understand the feeling, but you'd think that people would be a little bit more wary with all the news out there. Okay. And like I said, I'm getting older by the day. GAIJIN50 number is ratcheting up there, and I hope I never get to that point. If I do, let me know. Okay. Yeah, AI is scary now for videos and voices. Yep, they can do just about anything. Okay. Shred Edward, is that ore ore? Yeah, ore ore. Me. It's me. Ore ore. It's me. All right. Yeah. So I could never imagine being taken in by this kind of scam, but scary. Have everyone downloaded Line so you can call them easy. Yeah, have everyone download Line so you can call them. Line is good. I use it all the time, especially for messaging. Japanese people in general prefer Line over Messenger. They prefer anything, even Twitter or X over Facebook, because Facebook and I guess Messenger too forces you to use your own real name. And Japanese people in general don't prefer their privacy, and so they prefer using Line over Messenger. So if you're going to come to Japan and you don't know that, I suggest that you subscribe to Line. Get it on your phone. You can do messaging. You can do phone calls. If both people have Line, it's for free. So it's a really good system. And I heard that they've expanded overseas, and they just had, was it a billion subscribers or something like that? So it is getting more and more popular. I use it all the time, every day, all day, and I highly recommend it. Yeah, I go with the hope that if a call is important, they will leave a message. Yep, there's that too. And I've had that. My landline phone is on constant answer machine, and so if it is important, they leave a message and I get back to them. Yes, it is ore ore. Okay. Yeah, one problem I have with getting older is I forget simple Japanese. Like, I will remember that Midori is a color, but not which one. Yeah, yeah, getting older is a bummer, ain't it? I find both ways forgetting vocabulary. Sometimes I'll be speaking to my American friends or native speaker friends in English and clipping along about some topic, and then all of a sudden only the Japanese comes out, and I can't remember what the English word is for something. And so also I'll be speaking Japanese with my Japanese friends, and sometimes just the English will come out and I can't remember. Oh, getting old is such a bummer, I mean, forgetting things. And I left my cash card behind in the post office the other day. I left my camera at Dunkin' Donuts the other day. It's a bummer. It's not really bad. I guess it will get worse, but maybe someday you'll tune in here and I won't show up because I'll forget that I have a live stream, but not yet. That's not going to happen yet. Love the problem with line that people I don't know put me on a group chat with some big-breasted lady of questionable morals wants to chat. Well, yeah, that's something about online in particular. Since I've been online, I have become what I guess is a pretty sexy dude because I keep getting these messages from good-looking women with big breasts, saying, "Oh, I saw your profile online, and wow, you look like such a hot guy, And it never happens in person, only online. So I haven't figured that one out yet. But yeah, no, don't answer those. Word of advice: don't answer those. Though I will say that I have had 2 occasions where I have gotten messages on Facebook suddenly from old girlfriends. One from girlfriend when I was like 19 or 20, said, "Hey, are you the guy that was in this place at this time?" And we got into contact, and we're still in contact today. We exchange. Of course, she's married, I'm married, but we're still pretty good friends to this day. The other one, I wasn't interested in, so I just blocked her. So, I mean, that might have been cruel, but there were reasons she was blocked. Okay, got off Facebook years ago and Instagram this past year. Social media is a cesspool for scam. Yep. I mean, I don't like social media myself. I don't like Facebook and Instagram. I don't like Mark Zuckerberg very much. I don't like his attitude or anything about him. I would like to get off Facebook. I never got into Instagram. Don't know much about it. But Facebook Facebook forces you to look at things you don't want to look at. For example, Reels. To me, Reels are such a, the short movies are such a waste of time, but they're captivating. So if you start watching, it's easy to sit there, flick, 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 flick until you find something you want. And then all of a sudden, oh, where did that past hour go? And so I don't like that. And I would like to be able to configure Facebook where I never have to look at Reels, but you can't do it that way. And, like I said, Japanese people don't like Facebook in general, but though I have to use it in order to inform people about my banned activities. So for that reason, I stay on Facebook. And also I use Facebook to monitor Japanese news sources. I subscribe to certain Japanese news sources through Facebook. If I could find a different way to subscribe to news sources, I would do it and get off of Facebook, but I can't do that yet. Social media is a cesspool for scams. Yes, it is. And a cesspool for everything else too, as far as I'm concerned. Utatsu Adventures. Oh, that reminds me of a drama I saw. A Japanese man was married to a foreign woman, and she got dementia and forgot Japanese, and they couldn't talk to each other anymore. Oh, okay. That may be a blessing in disguise. I'm joking, of course. But yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we're sitting here, and I am too. I'm cracking jokes about dementia and things like that. But it must be a very horrible thing to live with. I've never had to live with it. But until now, I did experience it when my wife's mother, before she passed away, had dementia, and I went to visit her, and I was talking to her, and she was talking to me, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the conversation, she looked over to my wife, and she said, "This guy looks like he's from another country." And she didn't know who I was or anything like that. So it was sad to see, but that was just a visit. I didn't have to live with it on a regular basis, which I said must be pretty terrible. Instagram was great until Zuckerberg took it over. Yep. Zuckerberg is I don't know. I don't like him. I don't want to get started about it, but if I could live without him in my life, I would very quickly. I only keep my Facebook account to get in somewhat contact with family and friends, but I've been in Japan so long. Have you found that you have very little common with Americans? All right, this is true. That's one of the other reasons I use Facebook, is to keep in contact with family and friends in the United States. I'm in contact with high school friends and and cousins that I hadn't been in contact with for years, but we got in contact thanks to Facebook. My immediate family, brothers and sisters, don't use Facebook at all, and so I don't use it to keep in contact with them. And like I said, old friends, old girlfriends and other friends. Yes. As far as the second half, have you found that you have very little in common with Americans? Yeah, in a way, yes. When I went back to the States, one time I stayed away from the States. I didn't go back to the States for like 10 years. And then I suddenly went back. And my family had moved from Chicago to Tucson, Arizona. So I guess that had a lot to do with it too. But I really felt like a stranger in a strange land. I felt like a foreigner, and there were a lot of things I had to get used to, and I didn't know, and people would get together and they would talk about TV shows that they had seen, and I would be sitting there going, "What are they talking about?" You know. And I remember when I went back to the States for a couple of years with my wife, and I was watching these old TV shows that were already out of favor in the United. And I was thinking, "Oh man, this is great! I love this show." And they would say, "Oh, that's old fashioned. Nobody watches that anymore." But to me, it was brand new. I mean, I loved it. Some of the American TV that I used to see back then, I really. To give you some context. One of my favorite TV shows back then was Mary Hartman. Loved that TV show. I thought it was the funniest thing I ever saw. I also used to like to watch Laugh-In, but by then everybody says, "Oh, that's old stuff. Why are you watching that?" But I thought it was pretty new and funny and fresh when I was watching it. Okay. But yes, I do find that I have little in common with Americans when it comes to especially current culture and ways of thinking. If you live in Japan, you always look at things from different angles before you come to a conclusion. You don't jump to some conclusion first. And okay. All right. So sorry about that. My mom used to take care of Alzheimer's patients. She always said if ever happened to leave her a bottle of pills somewhere. So yep, there you go. Okay, that's Adventures wants to listen to the next news story. Okay, we'll do that, and then we'll come back to these comments. Yeah, some TV shows, good. There's another one somebody mentioned that I loved after it was Old Hat. Okay, here's one that I thought was pretty funny too. I mean, all of these I think are pretty interesting. Next news story. Your wish is my command. Udatsu Adventures. Oop, get that up there. Okay. All right, here you go. Heckling. Once a fixture of diet debate in Japan, abates in the face of dominance by Takaichi and the LDP. Now, here you go. I thought this was pretty funny. There's less heckling in the diet, and like yelling at the prime minister as they're giving a speech, and they're talking as if this is something that's to be something that's not good, right? It says the culture of heckling in Japan politics, symbolized by the phrase "heckling is the spice of parliamentary debate," is changing. When Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi delivered her policy speech on February 20th, just after her Liberal Democratic Party's landslide victory in the general election, the floor of the Diet was filled with applause from ruling party members, while silence reigned in the opposition ranks. Oh, too bad. It's just the opposite in the States. During the last State of the Union speech, some lawmakers heckled the president, and people are saying, "Oh, this is terrible. It's, the decorum of the of the lawmaker and all this kind of stuff. But in Japan, it's just the opposite. The decorum is too good. During a similar speech by Takaichi last October, members of the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan, CDPJ, kept yelling about a political fund scandal and other issues from the opposition party seats. So what do you think? Do you think lawmakers should be yelling at the president or the prime minister while they're giving a speech? While you're mulling over that, I'll go back to the comments here. Some of them are about the past discussion. Yeah, I first watched Beavis and Butthead after it had been canceled. Me too. There are a lot of TV shows that I never watched for real, but I caught up on them thanks to YouTube. Beavis and Butthead is one. Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld's show is another one. South Park is another one. Okay. My only friend is another lady married to a Japanese man because we don't really fit in with anyone else, not somehow related to Japan. She's the pastor's wife from a Japanese church I found. Yeah, okay. I could see that. Kelvin, how you doing? Kelvin says, sorry, I'm late. You're never late, Kelvin. Thank you and welcome to the party. Oh, by the way, Kelvin, I'm just on a personal note, Kelvin, I got your email and I'll be answering later today. Okay. And Mission Silo. Wow, that's an interesting name. American politicians used to shoot each other in duels. Whoa. That's true, isn't it? Yeah, if they had a little problem, they'd go out to the riverside, to the banks of the Potomac, and 10 paces, turn and fire. Kelvin says we need to bring that back. Well, did you know that there was a incident recently in Japan where two guys got into some kind of an argument, and then they went somewhere to settle it and got into a fight, and there may have been injury involved. Somebody may have stabbed somebody, or it was just, I don't remember the full details. I can look it up later. But they were arrested by the police for violation of Japanese dueling laws. And there's a dueling law in the books from the Meiji period, when Japan was trying to get out of its feudal period. And, they were trying to take the power away from the samurai, who were dueling all the time, or had the right to, at least. And so they passed a dueling law that said, no more chopping each other's heads off. And that law evidently is still in the books. And for some reason, these guys were tried they were at least arrested under Japanese dueling laws. So, okay. I wonder if America still has dueling laws. Japan is the most indebted country in the first world, so worrying about financial scandals is the least of Japan's worries. That's true. That's one of the things that is often brought up about Japan's debt problem, how they're going to get out of it, how they're going to take care of it. And that's for sure one of the conundrums facing the Takaichi administrations. And Kelvin says he's doing good. Thanks for asking. And sounds good. No rush. That was me. I told him I'd answer his email. Okay. And I feel like good debate is good, Udatsu Adventure says, but I hope they let the person finish talking before the heckling. Well, yeah, but I guess by definition, heckling doesn't let the person finish talking. But yeah, debate is good. Debate is good. There's enough debate in the U.S. at least. Yeah, and there's debate in Japan too. You get people with strong opinions in Japan too, especially on TV in informal situations. Yeah, I like the way the British people debate. I guess it's similar to the Japan debate, but the Brits are so good at insulting each other with a sounding so polite as they insult each other. Okay. Based on my husband's arguing habits, they don't wait for people to finish talking. Oh, okay. I thought it was my wife's bad habit. My wife has the habit of, she thinks I know what I'm going to say when I'm about halfway through a sentence, and she comes up with an answer when I'm halfway through a sentence, and sometimes it's completely different to compared to what I'm talking about. But we won't. Yeah, husbands and wives. Yeah. Okay, I won't go too deeply into that. Japanese don't understand. Oh, Shred Edward. This topic. Japanese don't really understand logic, so debate is going to be based on emotion. Yeah, they don't understand logic, insofar as formal logic. I don't know if you want to call it Western logic. But yeah, sometimes Japanese arguments are hard to follow. And there is a lot of emotion involved. And of course, there's emotion involved in debate in the US too. But emotional opinions, or opinions based on emotions, are more readily accepted as being valid in Japan, I think, than they are in maybe America or the West in general. I don't know. I don't know if what I'm saying is correct or clear, but I've heard discussions, business discussions and policy discussions, and someone will bring up a totally emotional reason for wanting to do something, and it will be given considerable weight. And sometimes the final result, or the final outcome, will be set according to this emotional reaction. People will say, well, I don't like that because it makes me feel bad. And they'll say, oh, okay, we can't have that. So we'll fiddle and play around with this and try to formulate it in such a way where you don't feel bad. Where in another place they might be told, well, get over it, or go see a therapist or something like that. I don't know the way it is in another country, because I don't live in another country. Someone wants to chime in, please do. Okay. Okay. No idea about dueling laws in America. It must be a hoot to be a lawyer in a country with laws that go back thousands of years. Yeah, I wouldn't say thousands. I would say hundreds. But there are a lot of laws in Japan that are still on the book that were promulgated, hundreds of years ago, maybe even longer, and still applied. And that was one of the criticisms of Japan for a long, long time. Even their immigration laws were based on very, very old rules and regulations, and that they didn't want to change. They didn't seem to want to change. And then all of a sudden, somebody along the line decided this ain't going to hack it anymore. And one prime minister appointed a minister of digitization. And now Japan seems to be rushing headlong into digitization, which is one of the reasons a lot of these immigration regulations are being changed. And we'll get into that. I think the next story, we do have that coming up somewhere along the line, and I'll get into that soon. But let's finish up these comments. That explains like every argument in my life, Shred Edward says. Oh, that's what that's Adventures. She's answering Shred Edward. Yeah. Okay. Okay, should it, that instead of the, okay? No dueling laws in the U.S. Hey, good, then you can duel. All right. And okay. All right. I just referenced it, so I think this is a good place to introduce it. This is a something that I reported on just yesterday at the on the with the video, and this is Japan's. Let me get rid of that. This is Japan's tightening of immigration control for foreign tourists under its new GAIJIN system. Now, this is big news for two reasons. Number one, tourists will have to be pre-screened before they arrive on Japan's hallowed shores, and also it talks about the new immigration charges. So I know that's a big issue among many people here. So we'll talk about it. So the Japan Electronic System for Travel Authorization, GAIJIN. So this is important news for tourists. GAIJIN is going to tighten immigration controls by pre-screening for potential illegal stays through online information input. That's a very poorly worded sentence. I think that they wanted to say the aim is to tighten controls through online information input by pre-screening for potential illegal stays. So before you can even get on an airplane and come here, when you're at home, you have to get online and input all kinds of information. I shouldn't say all kinds of information, but basic information like your passport information, purpose to stay, accommodation details, and other information. And then the agency will verify if there is any false declarations or a history of illegal stays, and then they will grant authorization if no issues are found. Those without authorization will not be allowed entry into Japan, and they will work with the airline companies. The airline companies will have to supply this supply this information to Japanese immigration authorities, or check this information with Japanese immigration authorities. And if a person has not been granted authorization to enter Japan before getting on an aircraft, they'll not be allowed to even get on the aircraft to come into Japan. And if a airline company does not comply, or if they do something wrong, they can be fined. So gives them an incentive not to screw up. And authorized travelers, the good point is, will be exempt from having their passports stamped when they enter Japan. So they won't have to stand in line to go through immigration clearance because it will already be done online. So that's if you're a tourist. I don't know who that applies to here, but this is for everybody. I think most of the people who are currently here right now. Currently, the fee for changing residency status, this is for new fees, or renewing the period of stay at a counter is 6,000 yen, and the fee for applying for permanent residence is 10,000 yen, as the immigration control law sets the maximum fee at 10,000 yen. Now, this is the important part. These fees are the maximums that are allowed to be charged under the immigration control law. Now, the immigration control law has been amended to raise the fee cap to 100,000 yen for changing residency status and 300,000 yen for applying for permanent residence. Okay. When we first reported on this some time back, these were shocking numbers. Everything's going up. The permanent residence fee is going to be bumped up 30 times, which sounds crazy. Why would they do this? Why don't they raise it gradually? I thought at the time, and it sounded like, according to reporting back then, and I passed that reporting on, it sounded like the fees were going to immediately be bumped up to these levels. Well, evidently that's not the case. Now, Before the immigration control law, the maximums were 6,000 and 10,000 yen, but it didn't reach those levels for some time. It was raised more gradually and eventually hit those levels. Now, what this new amendment does is it raises the maximum amounts that can be charged for certain immigration procedures. And that is the maximum amount that can be charged is 100,000 yen for residency status change, and the maximum amount that may be charged for permanent residence application is 300,000 yen. That does not mean that these charges will immediately jump to these levels, but it may reach them eventually. How quickly? We don't know yet. So the immigration people are going to have to decide how much they want to charge within these maximum limits. Are they going to go from 10,000 yen to 20 or 30 or 40 or 50? We don't know yet. For permanent residents, is it going to go 10, 20, 100, 50? We don't know yet. So they will be raising their fees. There's no doubt about that. The government always raises everything. But these are the maximum amounts they can charge under the immigration control law. So how this is going to pan out, we still don't know. We'll try to keep an eye on it and let you know. So that is that's what we're going to be talking about from now. Let me look at our... So going digital sounds like a recipe for disaster, or at least isn't robust. Yeah, there are a lot of reports coming out recently. Digital, I don't know about digital, but there are a lot of reports about AI saying that it ain't what it's cracked up to be. It seems to be screwing up in some ways, but we'll see about that. AI is improving all the time. So going digital, recipe for disaster. Well, this is like the big swing. For years, foreign residents used to laugh at the way Japanese government did things because, for example, the tax office didn't talk to immigration, and immigration didn't talk to this one, to the city office, and the city office didn't talk to that, to the police, and all this kind of stuff. So we always used to chuckle and say, yeah, we're safe. Nobody talks to anybody. Now everybody seems to be wanting to talk to everybody, and we're going to see how this sharing of information is going to affect us in the future. So how are cops going to establish if they are in the country legally if the passport is not stamped with a visa and a date? I don't know. Like I said, they will be pre-screened and there won't be a stamp. I don't know how they're going to handle it. If you're going to have a document or you have to go somewhere, if you have to go to the consulate or the embassy to get a stamp. No, maybe you don't. You're going to be doing it online. Who knows? That's above my pay grade. Netflix causing a lot of trouble with their WBO hardline about streaming. Yes, they are, Japan Gambler Diaries. In fact, I had a story. I was going to do it, but I didn't include it in my list of stories that I have on prepared here. There was some guy who owns a bar, and he got a Netflix subscription for the game, just for the game. It's a baseball bar. So his plan was he was going to turn the TV on and show the game, the WBO World Baseball Championship, at his bar as Japan plays, and it's good for his business and all that kind of. And he was getting messages in the mail. The article was unclear whether these messages were official or not, but they were warning him, don't do it. Don't show the games via Netflix in your bar because I don't know. I don't think they made any overt threat, but he was warned not to do it, and he ended up not doing it. But yeah, that's a big thing. And a lot of Japanese people were disappointed that they couldn't cheer on their favorite team that without a Netflix subscription. Okay. Well, the current 10,000 yen is the cap, and that's just what they are charging. So I'm not sure if the word cap really matters. Well, they didn't reach 10,000 yen until I think it was early last year, and the cap was in place for a long time. So it didn't just jump to the maximum cap all at once. But again, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Like my mother used to say, we shall see what we shall see. But yeah, the government is the government. You know, they love their money. The digital paperless office thing is the bane of my current existence at work. Yeah, digital paperless is a nice topic, and it's a nice objective, and it sounds good. But you know, sometimes it doesn't work that well, and even I struggle with it myself. When doing a video, is it better to have something on the screen in front of me or something by paper in front of me? And sometimes when I use the screen, I think, paper is better. And then I try using paper and, the screen is better. So I don't know. Good question. I don't know. It stresses me out since I plan to PR or naturalize as soon as I can. But it's looking like the income requirement is going to be even worse in my shoes with a blue-collar husband. Yeah, I don't know how it works on that. You know, I've been here long enough that I've already grandfathered into a PR, and I hope they don't start messing with that, because that would sure be a pain, wouldn't it? But yeah, starting the PR journey now, you know, they're saying that even with a Japanese spouse, you know, it takes 10 years or more and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's you know, I wish I could say more besides I don't know, but I don't know. The income requirement, yeah, they keep raising that too. Maybe you're gonna have to get a job there, that's an adventure. Okay, recipe for disaster, because at least paper works when the lights go out. Paper can be air gap secured. AI like ChatGPT can make stuff up. Yep. That's true. That's true. You know, yeah, I had that just recently. I was using Gemini, and I wanted to have Gemini look at a video that I made and find certain information, or you check it for errors or something like that. And I asked, well, you don't want me to upload the transcript? And they said, no, just send the video and we'll watch the video. And I said, wow, that makes life easy. So I sent the video and it says, oh, this video is about, and it totally made stuff up. So I said, no, it's not. And they said, oh, sorry about that. It's about this. And it totally made stuff up again. And about 4 times it made stuff up and started talking about things that weren't even in the video. And finally, I had to admit that what it claims it can do and what it actually can do are 2 different things. Maybe the digital machine will have a printer thing, like when you stick your bank book in the ATM machine. Who knows, you know? We'll see. I guess we'll see. They say that that new system, I keep forgetting the name, Gesta actually won't go into full implementation until 2028. So I'm sure they'll have a time to work things out. Paper doesn't have fits like a digital system do. Yep. And yeah. And like AI also, you know, like you said, it hallucinates. It makes things up out of whole cloth. Okay. And same. It was a pain when I got PR. So if they put me through that again, I might just choose to be homeless back in the States. Yeah. Actually, I've given it some thought. Not a whole lot of thought, even after being here as long as I have. If they suddenly said, well, you know, you have to have your PR reevaluated every X number of years, and every X number of years you have to pay 100,000 yen or something like that, or 300,000 yen, you know, it would be tempting to start thinking of greener pastures somewhere. But then again, the thought of going back to the United States is not very appealing at all. Okay. All right. All right. I'm getting near the end. I have one more story if you want to hear it, unless you want to, anybody have anything more to say about PR or anything like that? Maybe not. We're talking about AI and digital things. I've got one question that one more article that I have, and it'll come along with a question on my part. And if somebody knows, please, maybe you can let me know. And this is about AI. And when I first saw this story, I thought, oh, this is a kind of a interesting Japan thing. Then I found out later that it's not, and I'll let you know about that. And the AI cannot be listed as the inventor on patent applications, according to Japan's Supreme Court. And it says they have dismissed an American engineer's appeal to have artificial intelligence named as the inventor on a patent application. Funny that an American engineer will bring this in a Japanese court. But I found out later, I wonder if this was connected to something that I read about the United States. But anyway, the top court's decision finalized the rulings of the Tokyo District Court and the Intellectual Property High Court, which had dismissed the plaintiff's request and said inventors under the patent law are restricted to natural persons, which I thought sounded pretty logical. So I thought, oh yeah, the Japan, you know, they're doing the logical thing. The plaintiff had listed the inventor's name as Dabus, the artificial intelligence that autonomously invented this invention. The patent office ordered the plaintiff to provide the name of a person as the inventor, and the plaintiff refused to do so. I wonder why. And the application was rejected. So this sounds like this may have been a test case, that the plaintiff may have been just trying to find out what the Japanese Supreme Court would do, or how far it could be pressed in this regard, because why not just provide the name of a person? But anyway, in this lawsuit, the plaintiff insisted that the patent applications, even for inventions created by AI, should be accepted. However, the district court ruled that the patent law presumes that an inventor is a natural person, and the high court supported this position. Now, like I said, I thought that, man, this may be a uniquely Japanese thing, you know, the way they just said, well, got to be a person, sounded real Japanese Supreme Court kind of thinking. And I right away wondered, well, I wonder what would happen if this kind of case was brought in in the United States, and it reached the United States Supreme Court. And then I found out that it did. Right about 1 day or 2 days after I read this particular article, I read an article that an appeal in the United States on a similar case, wanting to make an AI creation into and trying to patent an AI creation, was rejected by the United States as well. I don't remember if it was the Supreme Court or a higher appeals court, but they said basically the same thing, that patent law assumes that the creator is a human being, and that AI creations cannot be patented. And so I started thinking about this. In fact, I had a discussion with this. My friend Tokyo Dan, who just joined our discussion here, was telling me about this wonderful AI music that he had discovered. He's a big blues fan, and he discovered this blues music that was so beautiful, and he sent me the link, and yeah, it's great. I mean, the visuals are nice, the music is nice, But then we started discussing about this AI creation and patentability, and must apply to copyright too, I guess. So I told him, I had a discussion with him, and I said, well, if this music, this beautiful music, was created by AI, I guess it's not protected under copyrights then either, is it? I don't know. If there's somebody who knows the law, there might. So if somebody puts some AI music creation out in the social media, and I took that AI created music and put it in my video, well, I'm not going to do that, but this is an if hypothetical, put it in my video, then the person who published that AI creation wouldn't have a claim against me using that AI creation in my video, would they? And that's more of a question. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, or it should be that way or shouldn't be that way. But I wonder how that would work out in a court of law. And if anybody has some advice about that, please let us know. Okay, America is having problems that are becoming frightening. Yeah, in more ways than one. Okay, Dan did arrive. Damn, missed again. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dan. I was going to send you a line message, but I got up late and didn't have time. So I get a free health check this year because I turned 60, I guess. I live in Katsushika, Torasan's neighborhood. Unfortunately, I can't choose my hospital. Well, that's always good. Japan's got its, people complain about it a lot, but I've always had good experiences with Japan's healthcare system. This means that AI is beyond patents, so it can make a Tom Cruise movie without paying Tom any money for his obvious opinion in the movie. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know what Tom Cruise would have to say about that, but that's an interesting point, isn't it? If AI is beyond patents because it's not human, that logic, I guess that they're going to have to work this out at a higher legal level than we're at here now. But that's a good point. That's a good question. But there are suits, I think, already in the pipeline about that. I'll listen later. Please do. Google says AI generated music generally cannot be copyrighted if it lacks significant human creative input, placing fully automated works in the public domain. Okay, there you go. But I guess, one of the things that Tokyo Dan brought up in our discussion was this, that, well, let's say I did that. I took this stuff straight off the internet, put it in my video and played it. And the person who published it, who I had gotten it from, suddenly says, well, that's not 100% AI generated. A lot of it had to do with my input. I wrote the lyrics, or I suggested lyrics and AI polished them and all this kind of stuff. And he said, well, once you get into a legal battle, it's going to drain your assets. So it's not worth it. So people will refrain from doing it, which I can see. I can see that point of view, as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, in the American case that I referred to, there was some question about prompting. So if the human who worked with AI to create this music or this digital work had to write a prompt, and it said that in one case they were saying some prompt was, pages and pages of prompting in order to get exactly this digital creation, that this prompting ability or this prompting creativity should be part of the copyright protection. So that's another question. And I read that and I thought, well, that's true, isn't it? That the person who created the prompt is exercising some creativity. So maybe that should be protected. According to U.S. Copyright Office guidance and Riemann law, however, AI-assisted music may be eligible for copyright if a human contributes sufficient illegal and creative elements. Yeah, that's just what I was referring to now. However, this remains untested in court. Yeah, I'd hate to be the one to test it because, as we know, legal challenges can really put a tap on our assets. And that, I think, is all of the news items that I have. So we can chat for a little bit longer about, generally speaking, about the channel. If you don't mind, you might be able to give me some advice. Now's your chance to chime in. I'm guessing it has something to do with electronic assistance. So if I use an effect while creating music, it should be legal. AI is much the same. There you go. And then, all this thing about prompting too that I mentioned, you could get AI to assist you in writing prompts for AI as well. So this is all a really interesting problem that I think that will be good for discussion, will be discussed greatly in the future, both here and in the Supreme Court. Using AI, I found out something recently. I do use AI to help me in my work and help me do research for this channel. I don't use it for writing. I do use it as a writing assistant, but the final script preparation is done by me. As you can see, I'm not an AI image, and I don't have an AI voice. My mouth is moving very naturally, I think. But I found out I was using ChatGPT because I started using it a long time ago when it first came out, and I saw ChatGPT, the only name that was out there, so I started using that. And more recently, I've been trying other AI, and if you want, I'll tell you what I have found. I have been using ChatGPT, Gemini, and Grok. And I have found out that the ChatGPT is really good if you need somebody to collaborate. ChatGPT does chat very well. And it's like having an assistant sitting next to you and you bounce ideas off of each other. But I also found out that ChatGPT is very, very, very risk averse. And it's very careful about what it says, and it's very careful about how it says things, to the point that it stifles some creativity in a way. So if you write something and you say, hey, ChatGPT, what do you think about that? They're quick to say, well, I wouldn't say that because somebody might get upset. Gemini is very good for research because it's a Google thing. It has access to Google's search engine and things like that. So Google is really good for research when you need information. There was one thing, I don't know how much detail I should go in. There was one very terrible incident in Fukuoka one time where some gaijin English teacher who owned an English school was doing bad things to his young female students. And he was arrested and went to court. And I wondered what happened to him, because the way things are in Japan, the arrest is big news, going to court is big news, and then you don't hear anything anymore. And so I was wondering what happened to him. And I asked ChatGPT about it. And it said, well, you better be careful. This is hearsay, and you don't know. Maybe your memory is failing you on certain details, and there you might be opening yourself to. And I was really surprised because I know for a fact, firsthand, that this happened. And it was telling me, I searched around and there's nothing on the net, in available. So you got to be careful about this topic. And that's what made me start to go about ChatGPT. So I asked Gemini the same question, without giving it any information. And it came out with a report about the case and where it was and what happened. And what happened was the guy was sentenced to 18 years in prison. And he took it all the way up to the Supreme Court and lost. So it was a real case, and it was exactly the way I remembered it. So I went to Grok and asked the same vague question that I asked ChatGPT, and Grok came out with a full report that had basically the same information as Gemini. So that's what made me start comparing all three. When I have something to do, I ask all three and see which one comes up with the correct answer. So do you have any stories about AI? Okay. All right. Well, people write books with it all the time, and that's copyrighted, but it's a pain in the ass. So I'm not sure it's super helpful besides speeding up a little. Yeah, I guess, if you write a book and say this book is copyrighted, it's up to the challenger to prove that you used AI or you didn't do any kind of creative input. So who has the money to do that? Apple doesn't allow AI music to be listed, but any band can record the lyrics with nobody being the wiser. Okay. Yeah. Apple doesn't allow AI music. Okay. YouTube, I think, allows some AI. I see all kinds of stuff. I've used it to help me write my novels, but I spend hours just fixing all of its screw-ups. True. Very true. I use AI to write some things for my English education work, and it's really good for tracking certain things down and keeping you reminded about things you have to watch out for. But I wouldn't copy what AI outputs and paste it into anything official, because it makes mistakes, and it goes in directions sometimes you don't want to go. So you can use it as a research assistant or as a collaborator, but I wouldn't use it as a final author. Be aware that AI will make things up. Yep, called hallucination. So it might tell you something that is completely wrong, but you ask and it will never say it has no clue because it wants a response. That's true. One of the first things I did with ChatGPT, probably the first day I ever used it, is I asked it a question, or I asked it to summarize something about which I was already familiar, and that was Japan's 300 million yen robbery back in the late 60s. So I said, write me an article about Japan's 300 million yen robbery in the late 1960s. And it wrote an article, and it sounded real good. The flow was nice, and it looked like a real story. And then but I found out it was making things up. It was making certain claims or going off on certain tangents that just weren't true, never happened. And so, and when I called it on it, it says, "Oh, you're completely right." Well, one other annoying thing that AI does is you ask it to do something or produce some text. It'll produce some text, and then at the end, this is ChatGPT, and then at the end, it'll say, "Do you want me to make suggestions about how to make this 100 times better?" Well, that's what I wanted to begin with. What are you doing? Okay. Same for my book. I have to go 2 or 3 different AI to get it the way I want, or certain scenes. Yep. And that's probably the best thing to do. Yeah. Okay. If you ask ChatGPT that I drink 100 beers a day, but will cut down to 99, ChatGPT will say, "Congratulations." Anybody else will say, "You still have a problem." Yep, that's true, isn't it? That's true. What was the thing? Did you see that thing? Did you see that thing recently about the car wash? That how ChatGPT doesn't understand how a car wash they say, I want to get my car washed, and the car wash is a 5-minute walk away. Should I take my car? And the first answer will say, no, don't take your car. Only 5 minutes away. Walk. And it's good for your health, and you'll feel better, and you'll get exercise, and all this kind of stuff. So it's even a simple, and then finally, after back and forth, and it took about 5 or 6 different prompts before ChatGPT caught on and said, oh yeah, if you want to get your car washed, I guess you better go by car. But I thought that was pretty funny. Okay. All right. All right. That's 90 minutes. That's a pretty good duration. I could keep going if you want. If you want to pipe up, I don't have any more news stories. I could talk about channel news if you want, or if anybody would like to pipe in about the channel news, you're welcome to. I've been trying to pump out a lot of content these days. I don't know if it's doing any good. YouTube, I don't know how familiar you are about the workings of YouTube. Very frustrating. You put something out, it gets a lot of views. You say, okay, and you put out something a couple days later that's rather similar to what was so popular, and it gets no views at all. And it's very, very frustrating trying to find your voice on YouTube. Makes me wonder, especially when you go to some channels, and not Japanese channels per se, but all kinds of channels. But it'll just you see these other channels going through the ceiling, and you wonder, what should I do? There's one channel that's this Gaijin woman who was working as a hostess, and every video started out with her waking up in the morning and going to work at her hostess job and putting on a bunny costume, and she's getting all kinds of subs and all kinds of subs and views, and it makes me, I think maybe I should go out and get a job and put on a bunny costume. I don't know. But Udatsu Adventures, they say you just have to keep, yep, that's what they say. And a certain number, yep, and try to figure out what they, exactly, that's exactly what they say. That's exactly what I've been trying to do. Be consistent. So I guess I'll just continue doing that. As long as you keep up, eventually one will hit, usually an older one. Yeah, I do have my own personal viral video. It's not very viral in the World Wide Web realm of things, but for me, it was viral. We got about 20,000 views, and so that was a surprise. But unfortunately, the 25,000 view video came before I was monetized. So the bunny costume sounds like a good. Hey, you think so? Man, maybe I had to go out and invest in some ears and a tail. This, I don't know if you've ever seen it. This young lady was really, some of her videos are really strange. So that robbery was the Toshiba incident. Oh, yes, it was. As a matter of fact, I actually met the police chief in charge of the investigation. Boy, he must have had a lot of gray hairs. That was. I ought to do a report on that, because it's one of my favorite stories. It happened just before I got here, and it was still a talk of the town when I was first here. And I remember when I first heard of it, I really was impressed. And I thought, man, these Japanese people are so smart. They can rob that kind of money without even using a gun. Okay. Consistency was always my problem. I get tired of editing. Yeah, the editing can be a pain. That was, I used to have an audio podcast that was pretty popular, but it was getting the thing in the can was the hard part. It's also true in YouTube videos, but not as much as I'm finding recently. One of my least edited videos recently was one of my most recent popular videos. So, and it's all, yeah, even when I was doing an audio video, and when I was doing a blog too, you could work so hard on an article and spend all kinds of time getting it perfect, and it's a whole hummer. And you shoot out something that takes you about 10 minutes and it goes viral. You never know. You never know. I'm the only one that liked the video, so let's go, people. Huh, this video. Hey, yeah, Shredhead always reminds me of that. Maybe where's my banner? You know, I've got banners here. Let me show this one. Please subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel. Yeah, please, begging. I'm begging you. You know, in fact, my last video, I put in one of those call to action, they call them, and I don't know if it'll do any good, but anyway, we love those. Here's another one: live stream every Saturday. Oh, I got to update that one. Oh, that's wrong. I got them both JST. Better get rid of that. Oh, I've got to fix that one up. Yeah. So, you know, it's always nice if you like and subscribe. I guess most of you are already subscribed, but it always helps if you like and if you comment. YouTube likes comments. You know, I've got some people, I've had negative comments and I've had problem comments in the past, but they still count as comments. They count as engagement. And I've had thumbs up. You know what was the video? The video that most recently got the oh, thank you. We've got a couple of comments coming in. The video that got the most thumbs down recently was the one about the tobacco shop lady chasing me down the street to give me back 20 yen. That was the most watched recent video and the most thumbed down recent video. But, you know, that's okay because YouTube counts thumbs down as engagement. So they're both popular. Okay. Yeah, I've heard people are starting to like the old vlog style better again. So maybe I need to get back to it and simplify. I am finding, and that's the current YouTube thing, that I can't claim to be an expert. You know, I've only been at this like 7 months, but it seems sincerity and heartstring tugging seems to be liked by the YouTube algorithm. Okay. But you can never predict what the YouTube algorithm will do. And I cannot claim to know anything about it. Just go out and interview those hostesses, and there you go. I mean, that's probably the key, isn't it? I still have a hard time going out with a camera and walking around and pointing a camera at people. Number one, people don't like it here. And it's not like in the United States where you point a camera at a person and they say, don't film me. And you say, well, you know, you're in public. You have no right, not right to privacy. What do they say? Assumption of privacy when you're out in public. In Japan, you do, by the way, in case you don't know. I read there are two guys, China Adventures or something like that. They lived in China for a long time and they liked Japan. And they were talking one time about coming to Japan, and they were saying, oh, yeah, we'll go to Japan and take all these videos and stuff. And somebody warned them, no, you better not do that. And they said, well, what are you talking about? When you're in public, you have no assumption to privacy. Yes, you do. In Japan, you can get in trouble for videotaping or recording people without their consent. You better be careful about that. I'll talk about that in a bit. Let's go to the comments first. That's why I go back and try to comment on all the videos to push you out more. Thank you so much. You know, I do appreciate that. And your comments are greatly appreciated. You'll go back and and to the old live streams, and even comment in great detail. And I really do appreciate that, even though I don't have the time to respond to all of that in detail. It is greatly, and I very much appreciate your participation in this channel. I like your outside videos, but the color is a little, yeah, as you notice, I have a lot of trouble with getting the color right. The original color that I got in the original video was very bland and washed out because I was under very bright sunlight. So I tried to correct the color using editing software. But as you can readily tell, that is not my forte. And so I'm working on that. Please be patient. I'm trying to work that out and try to get it under control. I am embarrassed to walk around with a camera. Yes, me too. I even on my outside videos, when I'm out there, not very many people around, and I'm talking, looking at the camera, and out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody approaching. I have a hard time to keep going, and I'm getting a little bit used to it, but still have a trouble with it. The movie Heat had similar plot lines to the Toshiba robbery. Yeah, I can say that. Good movie, Heat. I've watched that a number of times. The same guy who I think directed Heat also directed Crime Story, the TV series. And there is a scene in the Crime Story TV series that's the exact same as a scene in Heat. Did you know that? Really interesting story. I've watched both, and the first time you see it, you go, hey, that's the same, whichever one you watch first. Really interesting. I bought these little magnetic ones for my husband and for Christmas to walk around without holding the camera, always to avoid people though. Okay, that sounds like the, yeah, I forgot it's not the DJI. There's another one. Yeah, another camera maker that has those. You put a magnet inside your clothing and put the camera in front, and people don't even know that you're wearing a camera. Yeah. Okay, you're fine. If I need detailed, yeah, that's good. My email address is up on the site. Yeah, this thing about holding a camera, I'm really self-conscious about that. I don't like doing it. And I've told this story before, and if you've heard it before, I apologize in advance. I was in Harajuku one day, and there was this building, and it was set off the street. And there was a line of people waiting to get into the building, and they were all dressed in like made coffee shop style cosplay. And it was really interesting to see that many of those kind of people lined up like that. And so I whipped out my camera and I started recording it. And some guy came running out from the building and he says, no recording. We don't allow you to record. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm standing on the street, and you've got these people out in public. What do you mean I can't record? And he says, I don't want you to record. So I stopped recording. I didn't want to get in a fight with the guy. And as I was walking along, I was wondering about that. Wow, this is public. Can they say don't record? So just then I came upon a Koban. So I went into the Koban, and there was a police box. And there was a policeman sitting there, and I said, can I talk to you? And he said, sure. And so I asked him about that. I said, if I'm walking down the street, blah, blah, blah. And I said, can he tell me to stop recording? And he said, yes. And I said, really? And he said, yes. He says, under Japan's privacy laws, you can tell somebody, we don't want you to record our stuff. So I said, well, let's say somebody's got some kind of a business, they've got a unique looking building for their business. And the building is out facing a street where many people are passing. And I start taking a video of their building or taking a picture of their building. Can they come out and tell me stop? And he said, yes. And I said, wow, even though their building is out facing the public thoroughfare, and they are trying to appeal to the public to look at their building, but if you record it, it's a no-no. He said, yes. And I was really surprised to hear that. And I looked around a little bit, and from what I can find out, and I'm not a lawyer, but from what I can find out from my own research, that's basically true. And that if you take, that's why often you see people who upload videos about the Japanese people walking by, they'll blur the face of the people because they don't want to get them out in public, and they can complain, why are you putting my face, and in a way you can understand it. For example, what if one person who's there shouldn't be there? Maybe they're cheating on their spouse or their significant other, and suddenly there's this picture of them with another person. Of course they wouldn't want their significant other to see that. So in Japan, the privacy laws are different from what they are in the United States, and you have to be careful about that anytime you are shooting in public. So be careful before you point that camera. Adam the Who passed a few months ago. He was an original YouTuber. Is that his YouTube name? Adam the Who? To tell you the truth, I've never heard of him. I'm going to write that down in a little bit. Yeah, I didn't know he was one of the original YouTubers, but I will check it out. You can do the same with those smart glasses. Yeah, I've always been interested in smart glasses because that would sure solve the problem about pointing a camera around. But smart glasses seem to come and go. They start to be publicized, and then somebody complains about something, and then they'll disappear. In Japan, you have to be careful too about shooting with cameras, hidden cameras, because it has a certain stigma. Perverts like to use them. So if you are running around shooting with a hidden camera, you might be considered a pervert, even if you're not. Okay. He can tell you to stop doing anything. That doesn't mean they have to. Yeah, that's true. I was at a music event that I helped organize, and there was this guy. He's a real pro. I've talked about him in the past. He's an Elvis impersonator. Name is Elvis Toki, and he was performing, and he told me, I don't want people recording me, especially video recording. And I don't want people taking pictures, and I don't want people uploading images, my image, to social media. So, okay, this was part of his condition. So I was standing next to this lady that I know, and she's shooting a video. And I said, hey, Elvis Toki said he doesn't want people recording his video. And she goes, yeah, I know. And she just continued. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Grab her camera or escort her from the premises? So I just didn't do anything. So anyway, hello from Emihime for you. Hey, Emihime for you. You know what today is in Japan? 3/11, Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. Is it? Is this I remember that so well. Thank you for letting me know. I forgot all about that. Yeah. Maybe I should upload my old videos from that time. I was up in Tochigi, about 80 or 90 kilometers from the power plant. And man, I've got very clear memories of that day. I also have a real cool picture of this. Anyway, I'll just put it up. Maybe I should upload my old videos. Would you like to see those? And he said that was in 2011. Remember that day well. Scared the living daylights out of me. Okay. The smart glasses have a light that doesn't turn off, so you can can't secretly film with them. Also, I guess they're really heavy and uncomfortable for a while. Did you hear that news about Zuckerberg and his team going into a court hearing? They were going into a court hearing about something. Somebody was complaining about something that Facebook was doing, and his team members were going in. There were 2 team members, and they were wearing Google glasses. And they were warned about that. You know, it's illegal to record legal proceedings without permission. So Zuckerberg, huh? Insta360, that's the one I was thinking of. Go 3S is very unobtrusive. Yeah, Greg, that's correct. I used to have an Insta360, but it wasn't a Go. I bought the Insta360 where you can switch the modules between different modules. But I saw the 3S. I really like that. Very tiny. Music events are a great example. Everybody has their smartphones recording, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. That's true. That's true. That's exactly what happened to me. I tried to enforce the rule, and the person says, yeah, I know. Yeah, what do I do? Take a billy club and bop her over the head? Yeah, that's what we have. The Insta360 Go 3S and the Go Ultra. I want to use it for shopping videos like the grocery store stick on the cart. There you go. Cruise lines have banned smart glasses. Okay, I could see that. You know, some people, you know, in the States, you see that all the time where somebody says, hey, don't record me. And you go, oh, yeah, what are you going to do about it? And the police come and they say, nothing we can do either. You know, you have no right to privacy when you're out in public, which in one way makes sense. But then again, if you were that company president who was caught fooling around with one of your employees on the Jumbotron, I think privacy would be more important to you than somebody else. Okay. I remember that earthquake lasted for about 2 minutes. If I'm not mistaken, all right, first of all, that's it. I'd be interested to see the videos. Okay, I'll upload them when I get off. I'll put a short introduction on them and upload them. They're not very, they're not really exciting. I did some shot of some damage, and there was one thing where I was inside this building and an aftershock came and we all went running out and I was, well, anyway, you can look at the video for yourself. I remember that. I think it was longer than that. I thought it was 6 minutes. It was a long one, and I think it was one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan and the 4th most powerful earthquake recorded in the world since modern seismography began in 1900. Residents, nope, that's not correct. Duration, 6 minutes, it says on Wikipedia, which everybody knows is always correct. Magnitude of 9.0 to 9.1. I'll tell you what, it was scary. I would not want to go through that again. The Hanshin earthquake also shook our apartment like crazy all the way to Shikoku. My wife was screaming and jumped on our infant son. The Hanshin earthquake was a terrible event. I think up until the Tohoku earthquake, the Hanshin earthquake was one of the worst that Japan ever experienced. 1995. Wasn't that where didn't highways collapse and things like that during the Hanshin earthquake? Pretty bad stuff. My favorite izakaya has a no photo and video rule. The owner is a nice guy, and he explained what it meant to protect the customer privacy. I met Elvis Toki in Memphis. Hey, rather cold? No, actually, he's a nice guy. Probably cold because he doesn't speak that much English unless you tried speaking with him in Japanese. But if you get to know, if you get to know him, he's pretty nice. But maybe he's cold to people. I don't know. I'm not gonna stick up for him. I think he's a nice guy, but in a way cold and businesslike. I can understand that too. Okay. Uh, yeah, it wasn't like any earthquake I've ever experienced, and I'm from California. Yeah, it was. I'll say again, it was scary. Well, I wasn't. Okay, you better get a better watch there. Oh, earthquake. Let me press my get my stopwatch started. good, good one, Shred Edward. Yeah. Okay. That's that's what I remember the most about that earthquake. To tell the truth, I mean, it shook a lot, and this stuff. When an earthquake starts, get under a table. Yeah, logic and clear thinking goes right out the door when you're in an earthquake like that. Yeah, I did remember to turn on my camera though. Isn't that stupid? Okay. You could do some live stream on earthquakes and preparedness. Yes. Yeah. Okay. The earthquakes and preparedness. Yeah. I think about that a lot. And, my wife puts water aside and things, and you're supposed to have a pack of goods prepared. But yeah, when there's no earthquake, it's easy to forget about them. But when the earthquake strikes, you're suddenly reminded. It's not like they happen all the time, so it's hard to keep them in mind, or like they say recently, at the top of mind. I could never get comfortable with that expression. Oh, went for my son's new passport yesterday, so when that comes back, we'll start getting tenting ready for all of the COEs and paperwork. COE, COE. Start getting everything ready. Yeah, autocorrect. Yeah, does it to me all the time. COE, cover our. I don't know. I don't know what COE means. Okay. I was at a stoplight at Seisuraoka in my high ace when it hit. Wow, I bet you that started dancing. I thought, damn, I need a tune-up. By chance, the road was just beyond the stoplight and had just been paved. Bad construction, I thought. Yeah, I imagine in a car. I've been in earthquakes in a car, and you start thinking, what's wrong with my car? That's your first thought that comes to your. And what I always do when I feel that any kind of shaking when I'm in a car, I look at the utility poles, see if they're rocking back and forth. All right, about a car and about the earthquake, the Tohoku earthquake. I was out in Tochigi, and I was renting a place, a big, nice house. And the house, however, was built on a hillside. And I was out when it occurred, and I went back to my house. And when I went in, it looked like a giant had picked up the house and shook it and set it back down. The whole interior of the house was a disaster area. My computer was all over the place. Dishes were broken on the floor. There were cracks in the bathroom wall. It was a pretty big mess. Of course, you'll be able to see it when I post the video. But of course, the water was, there's no water, no electricity, no telephone, no highway, no gasoline, no food stores. But we were a little bit apprehensive about sleeping inside this house on the side of a hill, because something like that could easily slide down the side of the hill if a aftershock is strong enough. So my wife and I decided to sleep in the car, and we slept in the car for I don't know how many days, and it was pretty cold still because I was up in Tochigi, but we made do. I was able to put the seats down in my car in such a way that we could both sleep well enough. And as we slept, as you know about earthquakes, the aftershocks occur quite, especially a big earthquake like that. There were a lot of strong aftershocks. So it was a little bit difficult sleeping at night, because every once so often you'd be sleeping and all of a sudden you're doing like this because the car is up on its suspension. And it was pretty weird. It was hard getting a good night's sleep, but we got through it. Eventually, we went back to Tokyo. Since the highway was closed, we had to go back on the side roads. Took a long time, but we did it. Okay, yeah, your emergency go bag. It's I would recommend this, even though I'm not that strict about it on my own, because it was amazing to me, up in Tochigi at least, how in a split second everything was gone. No telephone, no water, no electricity. Everything that we take for granted in modern life was in a split second gone. And it was pretty shocking. As a matter of fact, I had at that time already had, I think I already had a smartphone. I had a cell phone, but right after the earthquake, you couldn't get a connection because it was being used for emergencies, I guess, or everybody else was calling everybody. And I thought that where I was in Tochigi got hit pretty bad. I mean, there were walls falling down, there was damage here and there. So I thought, wow, this is terrible. How are we going to get through all this? I had no idea about the tsunami because we didn't have a TV, we didn't have a radio, we didn't have anything. So when I finally got a connection on my phone, I called my parents in Arizona to tell them that I was safe. That was my first instinct. And I was talking to my father, and he said, "Wow, did you see this tsunami?" And I said, "Tsunami? No idea that." And when I finally found the tsunami, I realized how relatively well off we had it, as terrible as it was, because Tochigi is a landlocked prefecture. We weren't affected by the tsunami. But anyway, things disappear very quickly after a major earthquake. Certificate of eligibility you have to get before your visa. Okay, maybe that's it. Certificate of eligibility. Maybe that's what you have to carry around with you in place of a stamp in your passport. I still had internet, electricity, everything. Okay, you must have been in a metropolitan area. Where I was in Tochigi, nothing. Everything was gone. Parents in Arizona, mine were living in Tucson at the time. Yes, my parents, my family, I still have family members in Tucson. I've been to Tucson a number of times. Really like it there. Really great place. Okay. Right. A fellow Facebook friend's husband was in the Japan Defense Forces at the time. They were providing aid night and day. Yeah, that's what I was really impressed about. When I finally drove back to Tokyo, and right at that time, my wife's sister's son was scheduled to be married, and we were scheduled to go down to Fukuoka for his wedding in a week or 2 weeks after the earthquake had occurred. So I said to my wife, let's go down to Fukuoka. We didn't know what's happening with the nuclear power plant. And I always say that my basic policy about nuclear is to put as much distance between it and me as possible. So we packed up the car and we drove down to Fukuoka, which was an adventure, not as easy as I thought it would be. And then on the way down the highway, we met a large number of convoys, Japan Self-Defense Force, Army convoys, and convoys of firefighting equipment, fire trucks going in the opposite direction, all headed up to Tohoku to do disaster relief. It was really something. Okay. Shredo says, oh, yeah, I remember you mentioned that. You're in Nagano, aren't you? Well, maybe Nagano's got a better infrastructure than Tochigi. Tochigi, everything shut down, just bawammo. My wife was on an emergency response team, but they weren't allowed into the area by SDF. I wonder why. Okay. So basically, the SDF refused to allow emergency medical teams into the area. Yeah, sometimes the Japanese bureaucracy does strange things that leave you scratching your head. Did you know the story about Japan Airlines? What was it? Was it 001, the one that crashed? The worst airline disaster in aviation history, the one that took off and something in the back, some repair failed, a piece came off and took off the stabilizer, so there was no control of the airplane, and it eventually crashed. And they were able, JAL 123. I knew it was a simple number like that, 001. It crashed in Gunma. And I read a story, and it was originally I believe in Okay, Ehime, see you next time. It was originally in Time Magazine, if I'm not mistaken, that said that at the time there was a night rescue team near the crash site at the time that or they scrambled a night rescue team. I don't know, but they had a rescue team in the air above the crash site that night and were ready to go. And they were ready to go down and do rescue. And they were rejected by the Japanese government because the Japanese government, according to the story, I don't know if it's true, Nakasone was the prime minister at the time, but according to the story, they allegedly were turned away by the Japanese government, not allowed to go down, because the Japanese government did not want to be upstaged by the U.S. military. True or not, I don't know. This is a story. And that so the rescue team stood down, and then it was reported later by the one or two survivors that there were a lot of people calling for help through the night who eventually died because there was no rescue effort late at night. That the Japanese self-defense forces didn't have the means to do a night rescue. And the government said, well, anyway, probably everybody's dead anyway, so we'll wait until the morning light to go in there. But that's the story. I'll see if I could dig that up. Now with AI search, I might be able to find that. Got to go on the Enigma of Japanese Power. I bought that book and tried to read it, which wasn't very successful. We'll talk about that next time. Ryu Sakamoto, Q Sakamoto, KYU. I'm making a note so I remember this. Yes, the guy who sang the so-called Sukiyaki song was a victim on that. He was headed back to Osaka on that flight, and he was one of the people who was killed. Very terrible. And somebody piped in. Yes, Steve Martin says, yes, a U.S. military helicopter spotted the wreck, and when refused, some died in the night. It was like, it is in the wiki read. I remember some Air Force guy, after he got out, or I don't remember what his status was, but he actually gave an interview that was written up in either Time or Newsweek. I wonder how the Yakuza get into these places during disasters to help people. That's always big news. Yeah, we talked about that in one video about how the Yakuza see themselves as being very honorable and noble because they do help out people in disasters. And you wonder, well, to be a Yakuza, I guess if you're a Yakuza, especially in the past, you're connected, right? And, you never know what the Yakuza, how they negotiate. It could be the old Chicago, New York style negotiation, Hey, nice city you got there. Be ashamed if something ever happened to it. So they're allowed in, but you never know. Okay. Same with Fukushima. The U.S. Oh, yes, I remember this. The U.S. military offered to dump seawater on the reactors and was refused, and then offered to replace failing pumps with military pumps. I remember that, Steve Martin. I got to make a note. That would be a good one. This sounds like a good video. I remember hearing that the U.S. military was ready to jump in and start offering all kinds of help, but the mayor of Kobe at the time was a socialist or a communist or one of those kind of people, and refused just because they didn't want to. They didn't want the help. They didn't want the military to look good. State Hillary record claiming no offers remained, and everyone was just trying to save face. Well, Hillary, I mean, she's going on record these days saying things that, well, I don't want to get into American politics, so let's leave it at that. Okay. I have links for the military aid, offer of military aid to Fukushima. Yeah, Steve, if you can send those to me, I'd really appreciate them. I may do something about both of the earthquakes and the U.S. military's offers of aid. In fact, the U.S. military did offer quite a bit of aid in the case of Fukushima that was accepted gratefully. And I think it was only because of the technology and the ability of the U.S. military to restore airfields after being bombed or something like that. What they knew what they were doing, that they were able to open Sendai Airport in a very short period of time after the earthquake, and Sendai Airport was underwater for quite a while. And thanks to the U.S. military, it was put back into service immediately afterwards. And the mayor of Sendai or the governor of Fukushima was giving all kinds of thoughts, saying we could never have done this without the aid of the U.S. military. And they gave all kinds of food aid and other kind of aid to the area. They did it under the name of Project Tomodachi. And every time I heard them talking about that, they would say Project Tamadachi, right? But anyway, it's Project Friend, right? So Ozeki Sumo San Kirishima lost family members in that flight. I didn't know that. Japan Gambler Diaries. Thank you. Yeah, very sad. There were a lot of people killed. 500 and something or something like that. Very terrible. It is in a Quora write-up I did about 10 years ago. Where should I send those links? If you go to the channel site And then there's a information about the channel, and there's a link that says more. You'll be able to find my email address, which I guess I could give you. It'll take me a minute to find it. I don't want to start. Send it to just send it to GAIJIN50plus.com. All right. GAIJIN50plus.com. No spaces in that, and it'll get to me. Okay. All right. All right. Looks like our membership, our viewership is fading. It's not there anymore. Woo! I better check that out. I'll see what I can do about that. I put it in there one time, so I thought it was still there. I'll try to figure it out. Okay, let's call it a day. I got to go out and go eat some lunch and get those earthquake videos all set up and loaded up there. Thanks for letting me know that today is the anniversary of that horrible occurrence. And we'll be back here live on Saturday. I'll be here with Carl, and I hope you enjoy what we're doing on the channel. And if you have any comments or complaints or suggestions, let me know, and I'll always respond to them. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to call it off from now. So I'll see you next time. Bye.